All right, should be recording. You should be good, Tara.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining for today's first Lunch and Learn. Today is on how to implement social emotional learning in your classroom. For those of you who may be new to Lessard, we are a project within the Human Development Center at LSU Health Science Center in New Orleans. The Human Development Center, or HDC, is Louisiana's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, or UCED, and is one of 68 in the continental U.S. and its territories. The nationwide network is a resource for addressing and finding solutions to issues that impact people with disabilities and their families through technical assistance, module, information, dissemination, and research. So this is our team, and that is me, Tara Lark. So who are we in depth though? Lessard partners with school districts, systems, networks for individual schools to build their capacity to serve students with disabilities. We do this through team action planning, providing direct training and coaching in classrooms. We provide educators with evidence-based strategies to improve academic, social, behavior, and emotional outcomes of students with disabilities. We are a multidisciplinary team comprised of special educators, BCBA, occupational therapists, school psychologists, educational therapists, school administrators, speech language pathologists, early interventionists, and licensed professional counselor supervisor. So what is social emotional learning? Built by a team of researchers, educators, practitioners, child advocates, the Collaborative for Academic, Social and Emotional Learning, or CASEL, has been working since 1994 to address what they consider is the missing piece of education. So according to CASEL, social emotional learning, or SEL, is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Hundreds of independent studies consistently demonstrate that social emotional learning benefits students. Decades of research show SEL has always been important, and it's more evident now than ever before. Evidence is well researched and consistent across hundreds of independent studies showing SEL has a positive impact on students, adults, and the community. For academics, students who were engaged in SEL programs saw an increase in academic achievement. For mental health, students who were engaged in SEL programs experienced fewer behavioral problems and decreased emotional distress. For skills development, students who were engaged in SEL programs saw improvement in social and emotional skills. And for school climate, SEL improves students' perception of school climate, safety, and sense of belonging. When fully implemented, school-wide SEL contributes to more successful and equitable outcomes for young people and is evidenced by the following indicators according to CASEL. So explicit instruction, youth voice and engagement, supportive discipline, down to systems for continuous improvement or sustainability. These are the core social emotional core competencies or outcomes that CASEL believes students will gain as a result of implementing a successful school-wide SEL curriculum. I understand that if you are participating in today's Lunch and Learn, you may not be the decision maker on whether or not to implement a school-wide social emotional learning program. However, there are things that you could do to teach these core competencies or outcomes, which are the competencies we hope students are proficient in after a well-implemented school-wide SEL program. We will discuss these competencies further in our next slides. The first one we will discuss is self-awareness, which is the understanding of how our emotions and thoughts and how they influence our actions. This includes examining our biases. So what are some ways we can model and build self-awareness in our students? We can identify and name emotions in the moment. You could say, I feel frustrated when I am interrupted. Please raise your hand if you would like to contribute something. Admit mistakes and own how you will fix it. I'm sorry we didn't get to play that game I promised today, but we will play it at the beginning of class tomorrow. This shows that you are also making mistakes. You are also human. Seek feedback from your students and encourage them to seek it from you. Ask them for feedback on how they think the lesson went. I tried something new today. What do you think? Should we do it again? Reflect on how your biases impact your actions. We all have our perspectives based on lived experiences. Recognize how that may impact your interactions with those students and their families. Acknowledge when you or the class needs a reset. Incorporate mindfulness activities, do breathing exercises, or reground frustrated students. Do a daily journal check-in of where students are emotionally and plan accordingly. And if you are doing or planning to do this sort of journal check-in, be prepared to set realistic guidelines around when you will check it. For example, you may want to avoid it as an afternoon activity if you don't think that you will have time to check the journal before kids go home. Also, always loop in your school counselor so that they may be prepared to intervene where necessary. Build awareness of how emotions affect your students. You will have hard days, and it may be due to circumstances not even related to work. How you show up affects your students. We know that our students love to point out when they think we're having a bad day. Be mindful of how it is impacting your tolerance, especially for your more difficult students. The next core competency we will discuss is self-management. This is how one manages their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in different situations and to achieve the goals. So, ways to model self-management. Tell your students about a goal you are working on and the steps you plan to achieve it. It's also a great relationship building tool as you are letting them in on something in your life and showing vulnerability. Acknowledge stressful events that may have happened and model how you process a stressful event. So if a fight happened at school that in your classroom that caused a stressful period, acknowledge that. Develop a coping strategy such as a mantra that you can tell yourself when you're feeling challenged by that student or that coworker. Post and follow a class schedule and provide an individual student schedule if necessary. Allocate time at the beginning or end of each class period to model what being organized for the class looks like. Pair it with a visual. The next core competency we will discuss is social awareness. This is how we understand different perspectives and empathize with others. So what are some ways to model social awareness? Ask students their perspective of a situation first, rather than sharing your perspective first. Expose students to texts that include characters from all backgrounds. Students should see themselves reflected in text, and they should also see people different from themselves in text to develop empathy and examine different points of view. Give students a space to share about any celebrations or traditions that may be unique to their culture. I'm sorry, I realized I'm not clicking. Consider how all students can participate in a grade level activity, and that it means all students who are in the grade level, not just the ones in your class. Create classroom norms around and role play how to respectfully disagree. Discuss how to address these norms being violated, and you can utilize restorative approaches to do so. So a little bit more on restorative approaches. Restorative practices help foster a safe, inclusive school culture by building relationships around repairing harm. These strategies empower students to take responsibility, develop empathy, and strengthen community. So community circles are staff-led. The focus is on relationship building and can be used proactively or in response to an issue. Using restorative language is using the use of I statements and asking restorative questions. What happened? Who was affected? And how do we make things right? And then there's repairing harm. You guide students to reflect, to take accountability. Written or verbal apologies or action plans are created to repair the harm, and the focus is on healing, not punishment. If you're interested in learning more about restorative approaches, you can visit iirp.edu, which is the International Institute for Restorative Approaches website. The next core competency we will discuss is relationship skills. This is our ability to build and maintain connections with others, even those who are different from us. So how to model this in our classroom. We greet students by name daily. We implement opening activities that allow students to get to know each other on a deeper level. Or an example of just a base level of how you can do this is a boring fact. A boring fact is one that most students have in common or can relate to, building inherent camaraderie in your class. For example, You could say, have a student say, I hate having an early bedtime. Likely, most students can relate to that, and it brings all students into the class. You may have another one like, I love playing the parachute game at PE, or I love pizza for lunch. These are some just quick wins that involve all students in the class and help them to get to know each other deeper. Implement closing activities that allow students to reflect on the day, such as an aha and apology, where students reflect on their aha moment of the day and share an apology that they might have from the day. Provide opportunities for students to work together. Look for opportunities to praise demonstrations of teamwork and collaboration. And intervene when you hear harmful language or when you see a student being targeted by peers. Also, incorporate your parents. Check in with parents frequently so that they feel safe to share any concerns about your classroom. They may know something going on that you don't. More on building relationships with students. A great way to do this is ask a student for help. It builds rapport with students because it makes them feel special, trustworthy, and an integral part of the classroom community. And you can ask them for help on things you genuinely probably don't need help on. If you need help setting up your computers, and there's a student that is very good at setting up computers, you can always ask them for help on how to do so, and then they feel important in your class. Recall a shared experience. According to a psychologist, shared experiences deepen relationships between individuals. Making a call back to a guest speaker, extracurricular activity, field trip, dance, or a previous fond memory helps strengthen the bond between a teacher and a student. So if you have a shared experience with a student, such as a fire drill happening on a rainy day, it's something you both experience and it's something easy to refer back to that student. If it's a rainy day, you can say, gosh, look how bad it's raining outside. Remember when we had to do that fire drill in the rain? That was terrible. And that may be a building ground for a deeper conversation and relationship with you and that student. Be authentic. Share your hobbies, interests, books you're reading, and music you like. Students want to know the real you, not the fake you. In addition to sharing during classroom downtime, ask students about their lives, what do they like, and how do they build relationships. This authenticity builds positive relationships that also strengthen academic performance, but also fight loneliness and sadness. And the final core competency or outcome we will discuss is responsible decision making. This is how we can make caring and constructive choices for ourselves and others. So how do we model responsible decision making? By engaging students in thought-provoking activities, we can help them understand decision making and how to make responsible choices. So some examples of those activities are a game of Would You Rather. Present students with two different options and have them defend their decision. And you can Google Would You Rather questions and many will come up. Role playing. Role play real life scenarios that your students may experience and discuss their decision-making process. Practice using the decision-making model. Teach your students about the different decision-making models that exist, such as a pros and cons list, or discussing options with a trusted adult or friend. Something you can do is CASEL's website offers a personal SEL reflection, and this allows you to self-assess in the areas of the core competencies or outcomes that we just discussed, as well as provide some reflection prompts to help determine your own strengths and growth areas. Some examples of those questions are, after you completed, which response are you most proud of, and which competencies do your challenges relate to? And before maybe taking the step to implement this in your classroom, you can do that self-reflection and see where you need to grow alongside your students. Social emotional learning supports and often overlaps with executive functioning skills. For the last part of our presentation, we will discuss this overlap. It's the connection of executive function and SEL, and what to do if a student needs more targeted support in these areas. So about executive function, it's the conscious regulation of thought, emotions, and behavior, and a set of essential self-regulating skills that helps us accomplish almost everything we do. Children aren't born with these skills, but they are born with the potential to develop them. Some children may need more support than others to develop these skills. And these are the areas of executive function: working memory, the ability to keep information in mind and put it to use; flexible thinking, the ability to change conditions and revise plans; organization; self-monitoring, the ability to metacognition to view oneself, task initiation complete and completion, emotional regulation, self-control, and time management and planning. These are you probably are already recognizing the crossover with SEL. So the first one, working memory, correlates with the causal domain of self-management and responsible decision making. The connection is that it's holding information in mind and supports planning, goal setting, and evaluating consequences. Evaluating consequences is part of responsible decision making. Flexible thinking, it correlates with the causal domain of social awareness and responsible decision making. And the connection is adapting to new situations and perspectives, which supports empathy and problem solving. Your students may have a new classmate that join them that presents a new experience for them, or even one of their own classmates has a situation like suddenly breaking their leg and having to rely on a wheelchair for transportation. This may require a lot of dynamics changing in the classroom. Organization correlates with self-management, which is structuring tasks and materials to help manage time and achieve goals. And then self-monitoring correlates with the causal domain of self-awareness and self-management, which is reflecting on one's behavior and progress supports self-regulation and growth. This is where teaching how to respectfully disagree may be helpful. Task initiation and completion correlates with the domain of self-management. Starting and finishing tasks is key goal to goal-directed behavior and perseverance. Emotional regulation correlates with self-management and self-awareness, which is the management of emotions. It supports resilience, stress management, and self-understanding. The predictability and structure of your day provides a sense of safety, which is something that students rely on when experiencing a stressful situation. If a classroom is, quote, managed, students can then manage themselves. Self-control correlates to the causal domain of self-management and relationship skills, which is inhibiting impulses, supports respectful interactions and responsible behavior. And then finally, the executive function domain of time management or planning correlates with the causal domain of self-management, and the connection there is planning ahead and managing time, supports, and goal achievement reduces stress. That is when that modeling of organization for students can really support their time management and planning. So what if students need further support, further explicit support in the areas of social emotional learning and executive functioning domains? A school counselor can provide more intensive support or refer a guardian to a specialist. You can also encourage a parent to start with their pediatrician for a referral. If a student has a 504 plan, that 504 team can recommend accommodations. If the student has an individualized education plan or IEP, the special education team can add goals addressing how to support in these areas. This is a list of references that I received. My references or my models for today. If you want to take a picture of some of these websites, they were super helpful in coming up with ideas on how to build those social emotional learning competencies within the classroom. And to further talk about the adding those supports to your IEP, our next Lunch and Learn is going to be on October 10th, 2025 at 12 p.m. The IEP overview is its IEP overview, best practices, and it features our facilitator, Brittany Clark. And then this is a picture of all of our upcoming Lunch and Learn series. So they go through May and they will always be on a Friday from 12 to 12:30. And hopefully you can learn something new through our Lunch and Learn process. So I'll leave this up here for a minute. I'm going to ask you guys to do a training evaluation, and then I'm going to show you a little bit more about how you can access more resources from Lassard. Give you about another minute to finish it, and then I'll show you the other resources. Okay. If you want to keep in touch with us, you can go to our website, lasard.org, or take a picture of the QR code. And on our website, there is an area that says Contact Lasard. You could fill out the form with your question, first name, last name, email, and ask us any information you would want to know. And one of our facilitators will get back to you. Also on our website, under online resources, is a plethora of free resources that you can access for your classroom and areas of visual supports that will provide targeted support. And you can also follow and subscribe to our Lasard monthly newsletter, follow our Lasard Facebook, and also our Lasard Instagram, where we feature free resources each month. Are there any questions, Allie, in the chat box?
No questions in the chat, but if y'all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute.
Thank you guys for coming. This concludes my part of the presentation. I can stick around for questions, and I'm going to go back to this slide in case you didn't get to do the QR code feedback. And also, that's my email address. If you have any follow-up questions, you can email me directly and I'd be happy to answer them.